Down to Biscayne.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's about have the guts, we're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
Welcome back to another post-game edition of 5 on the Floor. I'm your host, Greg Sylvander. Tonight's floor plan with me, Major Passons, and that's it. It's just a duo tonight on the show. We probably will be more productive than the Miami Heat were on defense. We are going to recap the Heat's lackluster performance at home at the second night of a back-to-back. They lose 128-115 over to the Indiana Pacers, and a lot of ugly stuff to talk about. We'll get to it in a moment. First, want to shout out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. You can talk Miami Heat 24/7 here. You can vent when the times are bad. You can have fun when the times are good. You can follow transactions. We got channels for all kinds of different stuff. This is where you need to be to talk Heat 24/7. You can eliminate all your other avenues via social media and streamline it to one spot. $2.99 a month, Off the Floor, for the most heat anywhere. But I don't know that people were expecting this. I'm going to start here because it's the elephant in the room. Jimmy Butler had another one of those weird games. He didn't look fully engaged. This is the second night where he's, got 3 of 5 last night, 3 of 6 tonight, 9 points, sub 24 to 26 minute range. And I know that the circumstances in each game were different. Spo stuck with his lineup in the first game. Tonight, the game was out of hand, so they went away from him. But the optics of it in the aggregate look weird, and he does not look engaged. And I don't think that they can continue on a path, even if they win some of these games, and tonight they didn't, with Jimmy Butler being this version of himself. And so I just want to start the episode by acknowledging that elephant in the room, that it's something that I think that they're going to have to really figure out what it is. I don't know if maybe he's working himself back into shape or in better conditioning because he was sick. Whatever the case may be, this is not working. That being said, Major, your thoughts on tonight's game, just generally. We're going to dive into the player of the night to talk about the very fun performance from some of the young guys, because if we're going to find good in this, that's where it will be. But to really acknowledge reality, accept reality, shout out to Barry Jackson. Major, your thoughts on the game tonight against Indiana, where they basically, you can't look at any of the offensive numbers and get too upset. But on defense, wow.
Yeah, real quickly on Jimmy and my thoughts on Jimmy this game. I kind of gave him a pass last game, first game back in a little while. Seemed pretty sick to me. Looks like he lost weight. And I was like, they didn't really need it. This game, from the jump, they needed it, and he wasn't there. So this one screams a little bit more worrisome than last game for me. And they needed something from him, and he just didn't show up. That's the biggest thing. I think basically for a large portion of the game, the only person that showed up was Bam. And Bam was like he typically does against Turner. he was doing really well. There were several times where I think a lot of viewers would probably blame Bam for defensive possessions when he's covering up 2 or 3 other guys that are, the point of attack defense was just pathetic. And I don't want to get into that because we'll get into it a little bit more, but
yeah,
like what you said, we could look at the offensive end and we can say, hey, there was positives all around, but even in the good numbers, there were still other things. Hero wasn't as assertive as he probably should have been. You got Jimmy. Terry actually had a pretty solid offensive game. There's just several things you can nitpick, but defensively is on everyone's mind right now, and it should be. Just honestly pathetic effort from almost everyone. There was a couple of people that gave some good effort, but overall, it was just pathetic.
Indiana shot 96 field goals. Miami shot 75. You are not going to win games when you almost get 20 less attempts at the basket. Like, what are we talking about there? 26 3-point attempts for Miami, 40 for Indiana. These are the kind of staggering numbers that all they have to do is hit them at a relatively good clip. And tonight, Indiana shot 42% from three, 53% from, overall. Didn't even really get to the line much. Miami got to the line 21 times to 16 for Indiana. So it wasn't an issue of a parade to the free throw line. It was that they got up more threes and they just outplayed them. And I just think that they looked more connected than Miami. Miami has struggled now to get off to good starts. I think some of that's on Jimmy. Some of it's on the entire team. I don't want to just make this all about Jimmy because tonight was really the entire team looked bad. I just think that when you're the highest paid player on the team, you're a guy who's fishing for an extension. It's a weird moment to not be your most assertive, aggressive self. And maybe it's that he's not at a level of where he can do that physically, throughout an entire season. And that's what we'll have to grapple with, is the fact that Jimmy Butler, maybe we've seen the best of him and those days have come and gone. But if he wants to be paid like a max guy, I just think that it harkens back to him to a degree. And it makes this conversation about, are they going to be able to figure out how to make that work going forward? Because it's all roses when they get victories like they did against New Orleans, although that game was closer at times than I think they would like it to be. But tonight, just the overall effort, give up 128 points on your home floor. The head of the snake, so to speak, is Jimmy Butler. And so that's why I'm going to continue to shout from the rooftops that this kind of effort was not good enough. But he's the type of guy that'll come out next game and shut everybody up. And I guess the question is, do you only get it from him every couple weeks? Not every single night. Let's dive into actually what was good about this game, because we could go on for probably 40 minutes on the miscommunications on defense and some of the stuff that just Indiana just made tough shots also. So there was just some headaches from that regard, but there was something fun about particularly the second half and one of our young players. Let's get to the Insurance by Lynette A-Aggressive Player of the Game.
And now it's time for the A-Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
So this is where I'm throwing out the box score from the perspective of like when the game was close, who was playing best, because Major, you mentioned it, like the guy who actually showed up early in this game enough to where he looked like he was trying to get a victory was Bam Adebayo. But that's not the player of the night. The player of the night is Kel'el Ware. I thought that it was a lot of fun to watch him offensively. 9 of 11, 3 of 4 from 3. He had it going. 25 points, a career high for him in his young career. 21 minutes is what he played. The 0 rebounds is kind of crazy for as tall as he is. I don't know how you would think he would just luck into 1 rebound, fall into 1 rebound. But the other guy that I want to call out here is Kadeem Johnson. He was second on the team in rebounding. He played, 12 minutes. He was really active. He got a couple buckets. I thought that the 2 bright spots tonight were Ware and his offensive game, and just seeing that start to develop and look good. And then obviously Kadeem Johnson getting the opportunity late in this game when it was kind of out of reach, but you start to see what a player can be and what they can contribute and what they look like. I thought both of those guys showed out. Your thoughts on the young guys tonight against Indy?
Yeah, Ware, this was kind of like his high He has lows and he has highs. And I mean, out of all people, I talk about that the most. But he is a lot of fun. He was like in that fourth quarter made it watchable, to be honest, because you were just excited to see basically his potential and showing his talent of what he does have. I believe he also had 3 blocks as well. There are still some minor mistakes, and like even Spo talked about it, I think before the game, of like he's improving, but there's still stuff to work on. So I don't want to make it seem like Ware's now like ready to start or anything, but it does show he's improving, which is always good. Plus, also he was very exciting and explosive in that fourth quarter. He started knocking down the threes, which he hasn't always done very reliably. He had a lot more confidence after he started making some, so that was exciting to see. And then talking about Kashad, me doing a lot of the Skyforce stuff and watching him, I've been talking about how Kashad is a very good defender. He can do all these little things. It's if he's going to hit his threes. He was 1 for 1 today. He had 3 blocks. He, in a 20-point game in the fourth quarter, he's running around. There was a possession where he literally guarded 3 Pacers because the rest of the Heat were just standing there. And it was like he's still giving max effort. And that's what I love about that guy. And I think if you continue to give him reps, I think he could be, I'm not saying like a 7th man even, but he could be that back end rotation piece, especially on nights where you don't know what you have from Jimmy Butler and you need someone else to take some of those minutes. I think Kashad very much do that, especially if other people aren't giving energy or playing defense. Kashad, no matter the score, no matter the game, no matter who you put him up against, he's going to battle his heart out.
Very much like Drew Smith, although Kashad Johnson does it in a much more fun, athletic, aesthetically pleasing way. But much like Drew Smith, what you can count on is max effort. And I think that you're right in that that's going to give him the inside track to getting into the rotation sooner rather than later. I think it's also when they clearly, and this is something I want to touch on about this game specifically, but just generally, point of attack defense and having enough of those on the roster is something that it's an issue, and they have not addressed it. And when they had a standard contract that they had to give out in order to reach the minimum roster spots to just continue operating, basically, they gave it to Kashad, and they didn't go for just a point of attack guard defender that I think a lot of people thought with Drew Smith going down that they would try to replace that archetype, that guard type player, point guards, if you want to call him that. And they didn't. And so he's going to get a look because they've seen what he can do in practice. I'm sure that they understand also that physically he is just in a different place than some of these young guys. So that was a major shout out in this game. I don't want to lean too positive. People think that we're sunshine pumping off of a victory because this was an ugly one, but at least you see some of these guys with potential that are young. And you look at how many drafted guys are contributing these days, how many of them are playing well, led by Bam, Tyler, just on a general basis. A lot of these guys are homegrown players to the Heat. They could be going in that direction going forward. It may not be the big free agent kind of build situation. This new CBA may force them to really cultivate guys in-house. And so you're seeing more of that as we go here. Let's get to the next segment. We'll go to the mobile C-Arm and Staffing Xray play of the day.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the play of the day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-ray of the play of the day.
So there weren't in a vacuum, this was a rough night. And Indiana had a lot more plays of the night than Miami did. But I do think that this is a moment where I will get the opportunity to shout out a good Terry Rozier night. He had a couple really tough buckets, and one of them came late in the game. And so I remember that, but I'm not going to get too technical with plays here, Major. If you got one, please shout it out. I just feel like this was a game where there wasn't enough positive to talk about. Defensively, they couldn't stop Indiana. They got rolling. So I'll call out the Terry Rozier tough shot making because he should get a shout out as we go along here, but that's not really a play. Do you have one that specifically comes to mind?
Not really. I mean, Haywood had a fun dunk. Ware, as we mentioned, had a couple fun blocks, but like they weren't that exciting because the game was never close. Like in a closer game, those would have felt more impactful. But it was just kind of like, oh, that was cool, and then you just move on because you're down 20.
Yeah, no, that's very true. Is that I guess it gets tougher to pluck out plays that you think are really impactful when you're down by 20. And that was the consistent part of this. I think the theme is going to be what they do with Jimmy going forward, and also how they rally as a group, because they have to take some of this and internally figure it out. Defensively, they've been okay. I don't want to make too much of this, but this is a game they should have won at home. And so, like, to lose to an Indiana team, I know they're on the second night of a back-to-back. Tyler played 40 minutes against New Orleans. And, so maybe there was some dead legs to some degree, but you should be able to gut this one out against Indiana. So it's pretty disconcerting that they didn't get there. Anything that we missed in terms of the young guys? Is there anything about Jaime? I mean, it's been tough for him as well. Jovic, your thoughts on those guys?
Jaquez, I feel like has been getting better as of late. This was not really one of those games, but he's been getting better. You're starting to see him look like an actual basketball player now, not just someone out there running around. Jovic, I continue to be impressed with his ability to bounce back. I mean, he went from completely out of the rotation because he was not playing well. It's not like he got hurt or anything. He played himself out of the rotation. Then he gets a chance, and he was that spark plug in a couple games, and then he's kind of earned his way back, and he's playing very solid basketball as of late. So maybe this isn't the perfect game to really talk about, those two, but I think you're seeing progress in the whole season as itself.
Yeah. Totally agree. I don't even really know where we should go next. As I'm looking at the box score here, I see that they got in some of the guys like Josh Christopher and Pele Larson, who I wish they would play a little bit sooner. Got some minutes here late. Kashad Johnson also got 3 blocks in his 12 minutes. Like that, it's interesting. I think that you could see after an effort like tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if Spoelstra went to him a little sooner going forward. I think that that's something to watch for sure. Let's get to defending the house before we close up shop tonight.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
The Heat did not defend the house. The theme of the episode continues. I just hope that they can bounce back. They've got Utah next. I think it's going to be an interesting, that's a matchup against a bad Western Conference team. And I'm interested to see how they approach that game, how Jimmy approaches that game. That's really, it's a trap kind of situation against another team that can get hot from 3. So as we look ahead a little bit here, that's who they've got next. Let me quickly try to get look at the schedule. So it's Utah, and then they go out on the road for 4 games: Sacramento, Golden State, Utah, and Portland. So this feels like a game they got to get, Major. They're at home for this one. It comes up Saturday. at 8:00. They got a little bit of a later tip. Your thoughts on the game? I don't really want to talk about this game against Indiana anymore, but how do you bounce back against Utah? And what do you expect from Jimmy Butler going into that game? Because I'm starting to wonder, Ethan had heard directly that he was going to come back aggressive and motivated, and we have not seen that at all. So I am raising an eyebrow at that situation. Your thoughts on the matchup against Utah coming up on Saturday?
Yeah, it's going to come down to, is this a blip in a nice little streak? Like if you win 3 or 4 in a row after this, it becomes forgivable. It's like, okay, they lost a game that they probably should have won, but at the end of the day, they took care of business over an extended period of time. Or is this kind of like the signaling of, I don't want to say the end, but the end, right? Like of, hey, is Jimmy quietly quitting? I hate even bringing up that topic, especially, like I said, after a guy's been sick and everything, but it's hard to not question after things we've heard and then these 2 performances coming out. He personally and the Heat as a whole, they need to come out from the jump and just dominate this game. They play the Jazz, then they play the Kings, then they play the Warriors, then Jazz, Trailblazers. All of those, very, very winnable. Probably should. Like you're looking at, they probably have a 60% chance to win all of those. They should win all of them. Then you play the Clippers, Lakers, then you hit the Nuggets. Like this whole stretch is primed to make everyone forget about this game, but it's up to them from the jump. It's not one of those, hey, we get down 10 in the first quarter and then battle back, because that's still going to leave a negative taste in fans and people's minds. It's got to be from the start, and you got to outwork basically this reputation that now they've earned and that Jimmy has earned in 2 games back.
I'm glad that you went there, because this is the part, and we'll end the show here. They're not good enough to come out and not have max effort. They don't have enough talent to just get by certain nights against certain teams and coast. They don't have that. They are a team that they need to play above and beyond at all moments. And then they still need stuff to break right. And that's how they can actually compete in the Eastern Conference. So on the random game in January, we kind of always talk about how you can yawn through something like that. This is not a team that's good enough to just rely on their talent, even when fully healthy, even when you have Bam, Tyler, and Jimmy all out on the court to get by. So this is the stretch of games where we said they could quiet down the talks related to Jimmy, because, when you win, that noise dies down. You're not going to break something up if it's working. So far, it hasn't been working. We're not going to overreact too much to 2 games. But it's just been ugly. So we shall see what happens. Utah's up next. It feels like another trap type game. Hopefully they will prove me wrong. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll have you covered for that game coming up on Saturday. Shout out to Major for jumping on post game after a tough loss, and peace out.